Looks like we are live there. Perfect. All right, give me one moment, everybody. I'm just going to close that door. Get in, but at least this way the sound will be dampened.
Right.
Would you like a water bottle while we're doing this?
Sure, buddy.
Yeah, I'll get you both. Okay.
Who's online? Is there anybody in the chat?
Not quite yet. No, they'll start popping up in a little bit, though. Usually I go live at 5:30. I'm a couple minutes late, but then they'll all pop up. Without further ado, though, let's start here. All right. Let's see, that's going. Ooh, it usually loads. It's loading there. Yeah, it'll go in just a second. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another camera class. My name is Saxon. I am your host. I teach the camera classes every week. Let's make sure this is going through. There we go. Yep, it's a little bit slow, but that's all that matters, as long as in the video shows. All right, guys, my name is Saxon. I teach the camera classes here at APT. Today is the first Thursday of the month, so we are in the intro class. Let me pull this up. Perfect. All right, sip of this. So, camera basics, really what we're covering in this section. This is acting so slow right now. Apologize to everybody online. I have a device here that streams for me, and it's acting up a little bit. Let's see if that does it. Well, it's good now, but why isn't this popping? Oh, interesting. Okay, that works. All right. So for our intro to camera classes, what we're really trying to go over is the very fundamental parts of our camera. We are upgrading from our phone into a camera. This could be our first camera that we've ever got. This could be a second camera. This could be something that we've maybe never used before. But what we're trying to get more comfortable with is moving into that setup. For the most part, a lot of people are graduating from your phones or maybe something a little bit more simple like a point and shoot camera. And you might now be interested in something like a mirrorless or a DSLR. And the idea behind this is just to be able to get your footing and to feel comfortable, so you're not just lugging this piece of equipment around without really being familiar with the feel. I like to start by saying, where do you go when all else fails? Actually, let me pull something up real quick, because this doesn't give me the view that I want. This one. I don't know why it won't pull up. This is the one that there we go. That's the one I wanted. Okay. Perfect. Now I can see the chat and everything else. Awesome. Anybody who's online watching, sorry about that again. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to chat live in there. I'll answer those for you. If you guys have any questions while you're watching, feel free to interrupt. So I like to start by saying where to go when all else fails. Most cameras nowadays don't include an owner's manual, but for those models that do, it is great to read that. It'll give you descriptions of what the button symbols and the shapes mean, and kind of be a quick go-to guide for you to figure and navigate stuff. In that same boat, though, there's a bunch of other resources that might cut through all that filler a little bit more easily. Imaging Resource is a wonderful website. It's a kind of employee-owned website and a camera-owned website where people who work at camera shops or camera nerds will comment and share different experiences, equipments. They even have an open forum format. So if you have questions on a model that you're using or just questions in general before you make a purchase, they're really great for answering those. They also have a podcast you can listen to, so if you are more nerdy in the camera side and you're interested in this and this is a new thing you're getting into, really cool stuff that you can listen to. I've done it a couple times and listened in on it, but it's very numbers-oriented camera specs and details that might not concern the average user. Canon, Nikon, and Sony all have wonderful websites. Nikon is one of my personal favorite websites. They actually have it where you can go through and feel like you're inside of a lens. It explains focal length, aperture, and shutter in a really easy-to-use diagram fashion, so you can actually drag it across on their website and see different use cases on products. And then the best and probably my favorite of all of them is YouTube. If you can't learn something on YouTube, it's probably not worth learning. There are thousands of camera videos on how to shoot sports, or how to take astrophotography, or how to do long exposure, whatever it is that you're interested in, or maybe you saw someone else do. YouTube's a wonderful resource to figure out how professional photographers are accomplishing what it is that you might want to do. In the camera world right now, there are three main types of cameras. You guys have two of them in front of us right now, but DSLRs, mirrorless, and point and shoot and bridge cameras. Point and shoot or bridge cameras are pretty much the traditional, straightforward, no lens detaches from the camera. It's an all-in-one camera experience. For those of you who might be going on vacation, or you want something minor, something where you're not necessarily changing lenses all the time, those are really great options. They even make professional versions of point and shoot cameras that have good range, distance, speed, low light performance that are wonderful. For the majority of camera users though, DSLRs are probably the one that you're the most familiar with. Digital single lens reflexes. The technology as a whole though has been getting older and older, and it's starting to become at the lower end of the camera spectrum. Still fantastic for a beginner or for someone who's learning, because it is the true way photography was then done for years after film started to slowly phase out. But now mirrorless technology is the main type of camera that you're going to see being produced on the market. Still an interchangeable system like the DSLR, but there are some changes within them. Mirrorless versus DSLR is pretty simple and straightforward. In a DSLR body, there is a mirror. In the mirrorless, hence the name, there's no mirror. When light comes through a camera, and light is always needed for us to actually take photography. With no light, it would be dark. Light comes into the lens, bounces off the mirror, reflects through what's called a pentaprism, and you can actually view everything through the optical viewfinder. It's a really cool part of DSLRs. If you put your eye up to a DSLR and look through the viewfinder, even when the camera's turned off, you can still see through it. Vice versa though, the mirrorless camera does not have that. And being that it doesn't have the mirror, it relies on the electronic components. A lot of people in the very beginning weren't fans of it. They thought the technology wasn't as pure or true as DSLRs. But we've probably been in the last 15 years a mirrorless camera world where they've been coming and building. And I'd say within the last 5 years they've taken over and really phased out the DSLR lineups. So you're seeing all companies no longer carry DSLRs. From Canon now discontinuing them to Nikon announcing that they probably begin discontinuing them in the next year or so. Mirrorless are typically smaller, they're lighter weight, they have a lower profile in general. That being said too, the mirrorless technology is quicker, better for low light, has better autofocus technology. There's a few handful of benefits that really put mirrorless in front of other camera types. So if you're new to the game, you're interested in this, I definitely would recommend buying a mirrorless camera to start. If not though, DSLRs are a great beginner learning tool, especially for younger people, college students, anybody who's looking to get into photography. The next important aspect of all photography, I think, comes down to memory before we actually get into what cameras do. Unlike our cell phones or maybe a GoPro that you might have owned a few years ago, most cameras do not have any storage built into them. The reason being is that these camera companies have made a product that's very powerful, that takes great photo, great video, but because people use their camera for different scenarios and different use cases, cards are dictated by speed and capacity. For entry-level users, beginning users, most of the people who will watch this video later on or who are watching now, they're probably going to be just fine with a slower speed card that maybe has at least, I'd say, 64 gigabytes. Something with a read and write speed of maybe 70 megabytes a second or 30 to 40 megabytes a second at that low of a gigabyte size is more than enough to get your first camera off the ground and running. If you're getting into things like video or raw file or anything that might be more higher end in the photography world, your read and write speed and the U of your card are very important. Read and write dictates how much information comes into the card at once and can be processed right away thoroughly and well by the card. The U then also dictates the quality of the card. You'll usually see U1, U2, U3. You'll also see that there's usually an SDXC1 or an SDXC2 card. XC2 is always better than 1, and the bigger the U, the better the card as far as durability, but mainly as far as the internal components, not the physical durability, but the memory's durability to take that information in and process it appropriately.
Hey, Saxon,
Mm-hmm.
is there one card brand manufacturer better than the other?
Not really, no. I mean, a lot of people love SanDisk. SanDisk has been doing it forever. Lexar is another great one. Personally, I use like 5 different types of cards. Sony is one of my personal favorites. Their Tough series. They've made it really durable and it doesn't break easily. And I bring my camera in a lot of bad situations sometimes, so I like that durability factor. Extreme Pros are typically some of the more expensive cards, but is one better than the other? I would say only as speed, as far as actual quality of the build and everything else, not necessarily. Now, pictures should never live on the memory card. A lot of customers that I have will hold on to their car photos and never delete anything. And while that's fine, you end up using all the space on the card when the card is really meant to be reused. I think of the SD card in the same way I think of my car. My home, and I go to work every single day. I use the car to get between work and home, and vice versa. In the case of a memory card, your memory card lives between typically your camera and your computer. It's meant to go back and forth and deliver the things from one device to the other that you're transferring. After you're done transferring, it's always recommended to clear the card, delete it, and then use it again and again. For those of you who have never done that process before, this is what that looks like. I always recommend to start by turning off your camera. Once the camera's been turned off, I recommend waiting about 5 seconds. If you ever are using your camera for a prolonged period of time, next time you turn it off, listen to the components. You can hear it turn down on the inside. There are parts that still need to settle and shut down. So even after you turn that camera off, the read and write still is going on. Other functions inside the camera, the sensor cleaning process that the actual digital side goes through is happening. So wait 5 seconds before you decide to remove that card from the camera. Once you remove the card from the camera, I recommend placing that into a reader. And I do strongly recommend trying to avoid the camera to phone transfer or camera to device transfer. It's always recommended to remove the card. There's spill or use cases where you could damage the camera on accident if it's plugged into the computer. Chances of you losing your photos can be higher as well via a cable. But personally, I just enjoy the clutter-free environment on my desk as well. And I also want to make sure that the quality of the photos is kept throughout the entire transfer. So always try, if you can, to plug that in. Transferring to your phone is completely fine, but it is one of those things that when you transfer to your phone, you are diminishing the quality of the photo. And apps like Nikon or even Sony actually diminish the quality while you're looking at the photo until it's physically transferred. No way around that, unfortunately. That just is the nature of the beast there. But card readers exist, and they're wonderful, and there's use cases for them all around. You can get something small and USB or thumb drive shaped like the Trifecta. If you lack plug-in space on your computer, the left model has plug-in hubs that you can use as well to charge devices while you're transferring. And then if you're using CF Express or the higher end cameras, they make readers that are for that as well too. So again, use case across the board. It's always good to keep one in your camera bag or maybe on the side by your desk where you normally transfer videos or photos. Now this is where I get more technical because I'm particular about how I find my photos. I have a very, very organized collection of photos from the past 20 years that I've been a photographer. When I first start, I start by copying photos to a destination folder. A destination folder is made simply by clicking left on your mouse and creating a new folder. I typically recommend creating something that you'll remember. So think of the name of the event or the time that you were taking these photos. Maybe it was your kid's t-ball game or a cross-country meet. you might write down Schiller Woods 9/25/2025 XCC me. Well, from there then, if in the future you forget what year or maybe what woods you were in, you're able to type in whatever it is you were thinking of, and that folder should pop up with the name of whatever it was that you were at. The goal is to make it easy to find your photos. Never want to hide them in a cryptic way or bury them within a folder with no name or no idea of what the event was. Also, copying your photos, not moving them, guarantees that they're still on the SD card. So it's a good way of just making sure that you copy and paste them from one location to the other. It won't diminish the quality of them, but if for some reason you become disconnected or unplugged or a computer shuts down, odds are that the card itself will still have your images safe and sound. Finding those folders, you can either do that through the Windows, that's Explorer, or on Mac, it's Finder. Then next, you want to make sure you copy your photos to another location. I would recommend something like an external hard drive or cloud-based solutions, something like Prime Photos or Google Drive. People have different ideas on how to use both, but I like the external drive personally. But if you like cloud-based solutions or actually putting stuff into a cloud, Prime and Google are fantastic for that. Oh, I apologize, everyone. I'm a little dry right now. I don't know why.
Can I ask you a quick question about this?
Sure.
My daughter and I, we both have Android phones and we have our photo libraries on our phones.
Sure.
Is there a way, do you know that, and this is maybe outside of class, but that you can upload the entire event, like you said, like
Mhm.
that's what I do too, like cross-country meet, and upload it to Google Drive as the folder as cross-country meet?
Yeah, you can just drop the folder right in. Just you got to do it on the computer first, drop it in on there, and then you're good to go.
You gotta do it from the desktop.
Yeah, it's always recommended you should always transfer your photos at your desktop. If you want to get a few photos onto your phone just for fun to send out to people, that's totally fine. But the quality of your photo goes down like 25%. And that's not, I don't recommend it. I never transfer photos on my phone. I rarely do on my iPad every once in a while if I want to see it larger. But for the most part, I'm doing it at the desktop, transferring it onto a hard drive, and then accessing it onto a phone or a tablet.
How do you share photos from one person to another then?
Text, email, through the drive,
But then
Dropbox.
you were saying it depreciates the quality, right?
It does. It's always going to depreciate in that end. It's always going to be the best on your computer, on your thing, and that's the only way it'll truly be without giving them the physical copy, like by plugging in a hard drive or doing something in that regard. You'll always lose a little bit of quality on there because files would be so large to send, it's almost impossible. Now to keep moving, we eject the card before physically removing it. So by left or right clicking, I should say, by right clicking on your mouse, you should be able to then get to the eject button. Click that, the SD card will then safely eject from the computer. And it's always then recommended to format the card in the camera. Formatting will erase old information. You technically can still delete them while it's on the computer. However, I recommend formatting the card. It primes the card so that you get the most photos out of it onto the SD. That could make or break and say, maybe an extra 100 photos. That could also mean an extra 30 or 40 photos. But still, it's always recommended to have the format the card on the camera to make sure it's perfect. Here's that backup plan that I've always liked. So it starts with the SD card. From the SD card, you want to move that into the computer. It's recommended to then put the SD card into the computer and copy photos over. Once the photos live on a computer and you've labeled your destination folder, whatever the event or time of photos that you took, it's then recommended to go to a secondary location. External hard drives are wonderful. Cloud-based solutions are wonderful. Whatever is best for you, your photos, and an easy way for you to organize and find these, so that way you're not scrambling or you have easy access to your photos. I personally use hard drives. I have about 3 of them. One that I keep locked away in case something would ever happen in my house, one that I carry with me everywhere I go, and then one that lives at my desk. I update them once a month. I keep a little chart with all my photos from my events and my things that I've done. I roughly transfer about 100 gigabytes into that probably a month. That is what I personally use on a regular basis. Cloud-based solutions, though, are fantastic to try. Google Drive is great. They've been around forever. You can upgrade the storage really well. They pride themselves on keeping the quality of images and documents too, so if that's one that you're looking for, they're great. If you're using something like Microsoft for work, OneDrive exists for Outlook. Great to use as well too. Microsoft is also in that same boat of priding themselves on quality. But Adobe Creative Cloud's really the winner, I would say. You pay monthly for Adobe, which is the bummer of it, but you get access to all of the apps. Lightroom, InDesign, Photoshop, any of the editors that you could think of, and then you usually get about 60 to 100 gigabytes worth of storage for your photos. That's going to be used to edit your photos, save them back, and then open them on any device that you could think of. Great service. Definitely would recommend it if you're editing photos or into that. Let's go through the tour of your camera. Really what the point of this is to show you where buttons live and really to explain the symbolage. For the most part, all cameras are different. I've got a Nikon here. You both have Canons. You people might be shooting with Sony, Leica, Panasonic, Fuji, Olympus. There's so many brands. However, while every camera specializes in something a little bit different, whether it's color, optics, post-focus technology, video, low-light performance, they all have the same buttons everywhere. And that nomenclature, or that idea of these buttons, are something that's universally recognized in the camera world. So if you can learn those buttons, it's a great way to get started, especially if you run into any issues as a photographer. These buttons will be kind of your fail-safe to fix issues while you're in the field. The last thing I'll say too is we're going to look at a DSLR, because DSLRs are still most circulated camera while other people are still adjusting to mirrorless, whether that's for financial reasons or for their technology still not being outdated yet. However, if you don't see the camera button on your physical camera or in the spot where they're showing it, number one, it could be located on a different section of your camera. And number two, it could be located in a menu of your camera. For most cameras, if you don't see the button on the outside, you will see an I button, a Q button, an FN button that exists on your camera, and that should open up a little sub-menu that then gets you to those same types of changes. If anyone has questions, please feel free to chat if you have a button that you don't see. So let's start with the very top, video start and stop. On your camera, you should have a red dot or a circle somewhere. By pressing that red dot in the automatic mode, you'll automatically start taking video. It's a really easy way to do that. Just click it one more time, it'll stop the video for you. You have the power switch next to that. On your camera, and that's typically located somewhere around the shutter release. Most cameras keep it there. It's an easy button for you to flick with your index finger, and that's the reason why. But that is pretty self-explanatory. That takes your picture, or turns the camera on and off. As the shutter release, that is what takes your photo. Half a click on the shutter release will also focus in on your camera, if you're using automatic focus. The full click will then take the picture. When you're in a mode that's other than automatic, there's a button that has a white plus and a yellow minus, or a black minus sign. Kind of looks like a yin and a yang, but it's a square shape. That's the exposure compensation. For those of you maybe who've done photography before, who have edited photos, if you've set all your settings properly on your camera, but the photo is still too dark or too light based on your environment or surroundings, you can simply turn up or down the exposure compensation to give you more exposure or less exposure in the photo. Mode dial is basically your gear shift on your car. If you think about switching into park, neutral, reverse, or drive, your mode dial is doing the same thing for your camera's brain. It's switching it from automatic, shutter priority, scenes, manual mode, all the different things your camera offers. The live view button, or LV button, or as one customer told me, the Las Vegas button, The LV button is very simply the live view button. DSLRs used to have this button on there, and the LV button was there because what would happen is you'd switch and you're able to toggle the screen on the camera. Or do you want to view through the viewfinder? Really awesome. That live view switch will then flick the mirror up on the inside of your camera and either utilize the screen or the actual viewfinder of the glass piece on the top. Mirrorless cameras, you're not going to see a live view anymore. What instead you'll see is a display button. Pressing the display button will switch and toggle between the different displays that your camera has available to you. And then finally, the command dial. When you're in a mode like manual, aperture, or shutter priority, the command dial is your way of being able to operate and control the numbers and settings. There's typically a secondary command dial on the very front of the lens, or of the camera, and that's usually by your index finger grip that would be at the front. You turn that number, or that dial, and then you'd be able to control the other number if you were in, let's say, a manual control. From today's class, what I really want to make sure that we're all on the same page for is automatic. A lot of people that I see that come in and buy cameras will immediately try to go to the full manual control without fully understanding what it is their camera is trying to do. So I strongly recommend beginners, people who've been doing this for maybe a few months, people who are interested in photography, don't overdo it and shoot for the manual control. A lot of people become distraught or annoyed by this because their photos don't come out nice, they don't come out perfectly. And that's usually the case in photography. It takes a while, it takes practice, years to get better at it. Start with automatic. Let the camera do most of the work for you while you build the confidence that it is to be a photographer. From there, start experimenting with manual or even the P setting, which is program automatic. That leads me to my next point. After you've practiced with automatic a little bit, start looking at the mode dial. Each mode dial is different. No two camera brands do it the same. Some camera companies will have all these different scenes on there. Some keep it really simple. Others have all sorts of different stuff. It's important to remember what your camera has and learn what those mean when you're on the dial. One of them could be extremely helpful to your practice, and you might not even know because you don't even recognize the symbol. The ones, though, that are the most popular. So A or automatic. That's the one I recommend stay on till you get used to it. Auto control over settings and functions of camera. Really what it's made for is that you push the camera forward, point, and shoot. Simple, basic, but effective. The cameras are smart. They do a really good job at reading light, distance from the object, and all sorts of other information needed for you to get a good picture. M stands for full manual control. That means you do every control yourself and you manually control all of it. A or AV on your camera is aperture priority control. Just control over the aperture. Next week in the intermediate class, we're going to break down aperture and shutter, talk about how the two of them are completely different and how you can use aperture and shutter control. But then we're going to tie it all back together to understand full manual control as well, and understand how someone like myself would read situations through some photos I'll show you. Program, or P, is a program automatic. Aperture and shutter speeds are auto, but everything else is changeable. Focus parameters, subject detection, autofocus, manual focus, your color profile, ability to switch between JPEG and RAW. The P setting really gives you a lot of control without giving you too much control. And then B, bulb, you don't see that much. It was a DSLR photo or a trick that would be on there, but that was fully customizable. But as long as you're holding down the shutter release, the camera will stay open. The B setting was definitely created for people who wanted to do long exposure photography. If if you were looking to take pictures of waterfalls or moving traffic to get the wisps of light, anything that would be something where, let's say you leave the camera open for 5 to 10 seconds, B was normally that. For the most part now, you should be able to access that under full manual or shutter priority and control all of that as you're going. Now on some of the older DSLR models, you're going to see scenes. Scenes are automatic. There is no difference between automatic and the scene mode. What makes it different though is that there are pictures on those scenes. They are to call out specific areas of photo need, maybe. Nighttime photography, sports or action, macro photography or close-up, portraiture, landscape, and then anti-flash. Stuff like that, or scene modes, they were things that cameras were creating to simplify automatic. In my personal opinion though, automatic is going to do all of those things just fine. I don't think you really need to switch in order to get that. Now on the side of your camera, similar buttons but a little bit different. So we have the flash button. For some of the entry-level models of cameras, you might have a flash button on the side. Pressing this should kick the flash up, and then when you take the picture, it'll then flash. Some of you might not have this, and on some of the new mirrorless cameras, for Canon for example, the flash is a pop-up. So you have to physically pull it up with your thumb in order for it to click. The function button. On a lot of cameras, you're going to see an FN, an I, or a Q button. Those buttons are giving you access to either a shortcut menu that you can fully customize. So if there's a setting on your camera that you've been really into and really enjoying, you might have it where the FN button is a customizable shortcut key. If you don't have that though, the FN, the I, or the Q usually take you to a quick shortcut menu for you to make certain changes. Again, those changes could be subject detection, your focus rate, image quality, your bit ratio, your color profile. There's a multitude of different things that are controlled underneath the I, FN, or Q button. We'll stick on the camera body itself. On the very bottom, there is a stack of squares and a timer. For those of you taking sports photography or photos with motion, that is your ability to do burst photography. Pressing that button and then going in will allow you to switch your camera from single shot to high speed or slow speed burst. High speed burst is wonderful for fast moving objects. When you see people taking pictures at the Olympics or let's say surfing competitions or maybe even races or cars of any kind, movement. They're using high-speed burst photography in order to get that. Let's say that you're taking pictures of something that's still moving fast. Maybe it's your dog, but they're not necessarily moving that quickly. Might be a great idea to do burst, but the slower speed burst. Capture more detail while still getting burst photography. The timer also exists in there. You can set timers for 3, 5, 10 seconds. Those are great if you're trying to take family moments where you might set the camera up and run in front of it. But for the most part, you can use your phone nowadays, and it'll connect via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to the camera to access all those features. Let's now go back up to the lens itself. I skipped that so we can talk about the lens as a whole. So first and foremost, to put a lens onto a camera body, it all goes through the lens release button. Pressing this button and turning your lens clockwise should remove the lens from your camera body. Putting the lens back on the same way you took it off and turning counterclockwise until you hear a click will then lock it back onto place and activate the bayonet system. On your lens, you're going to have a few different rings. A zoom ring, so if you have a telephoto lens, this is going to be your ability to zoom in and out. And then if you have a focus ring, if you're not using automatic focus and you're using manual focus, this is going to give you the ability to focus your camera. On higher end lenses, you might also have what's called an aperture ring. Aperture isn't going to control the metal iris on the inside of your lens to give you a larger or smaller aperture depending on how much light you want to come in. On entry-level lenses, because they don't necessarily have the most advanced autofocus motor, you typically will have a lens retract button. Holding this down and turning it to one side will unlock the lens. Pressing it again and turning it until you hear a click will lock the lens. All that's really good for is for travel, for movement. If you're leaving places and going somewhere else, your lens will lock into place so that way it doesn't shift while you're transferring or moving. This was really important in the days of traveling with these cameras. People would get places and their lens could snap because of the fact that it would open in their backpack or briefcase, and then there'd be pressure on the actual zooming component of the lens. Other than that, it should break down the side really well. Moving to the back of the camera, we have more. Now again, a lot of this stuff you might not see, but it is located somewhere within your camera, so keep that in mind. Now we keep talking about the shortcut menus, the FN, the Q, the I button, but the actual menu button takes you into the deeper parts of the camera, connecting your Bluetooth feature or Wi-Fi feature to your cell phone, changing your bracketing ideas if you have the bracketing format that you really like, changing your time, your date, going through your video settings to set 4K or HD or 1080, whatever it might be. Menu button is going to take you into more of the deep diving parts of your camera that you don't need to change as regularly. Diameter adjustment exists on the side of the eyepiece. For anybody who wears glasses, much like myself, it's just like going to the eye doctor where they say A or B, 1 or 2. The diameter changement, hold on. Let's do this. Sometimes this thing doesn't want to work for me. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Laptop was dying. Okay. Diameter adjustment, for those of you who are like me, you understand that. It'll then basically refocus your lens and your viewing piece. There's 2 pieces of glass. As you turn that movement, it'll go back and forth until you have everything in proper focus. The info button is a fun one. You won't see that on many DSLRs anymore, mirrorless anymore. But what it was for was, let's say you were taking a photo in automatic. I'm going to jump around a little bit. If you press the image playback button on here, and using the multi-selector, you scroll through your photos. At one point, you might find a photo that you took that came out really good. Sharp, clean, and you're just wondering what settings, what control you used. If you press the info button, it'll actually pull up the metadata of that photo. It'll show you a histogram to show you where light was balanced on your photo. It'll pull up the aperture, the shutter, and the ISO that you used. And that's a great educational tool for beginning photographers to see what did your camera do in order for you to capture such a perfect image. Highly would recommend that. Even if you just click on your photos when you get them onto the computer, that metadata gets saved on there. So you should just be able to press info on the photo and get that information from it. F-stop, shutter, or an ISO. Now the exposure lock or focus lock is going to be a button that is your back pushing focus. So a lot of people ask in camera world, does it have back button focus? Basically what that means is they don't like the half click on the hair trigger in the front. They would rather hold it down with their thumb. The camera will then autofocus for them, and then from there they can pull the trigger and take the photo. Easy way to do it, simple way to do it, but another advantage to the focusing if you don't like using the full click in the front. Image playback I just talked about. And now this camera does have the I button. So similar to that FN button or the Q button I was talking about, if I click on that, will get me to the shortcut menu for me to make smaller changes on my camera. Things that I might change on a regular basis that I don't necessarily need to change by going through all the different menus through clicking menu button. We talked about okay, we talked about multi-selector, magnify and demagnify. Let's say you take a really nice photo. One of the nice and easy ways to do it is to check how crisp and how nice your edges of your photo are. By using the magnifier tool, you can zoom in on your camera onto a photo and see the quality of the image really easily. And then last but not least, you have the delete button. Simple, it's there, it's straightforward. You need to delete a photo, you can. I will say this much with deleting photos on your camera. Your camera uses twice as much battery to delete a photo as it does to take a photo. I recommend not deleting on the camera, bringing it over to the computer, and then beginning to tabulate your photos through that. Going through and being able to cut through and then delete the photos you don't like is such an easy way to clear and actually go through that. One of the ways that I've learned to do it really fast on my computers, I actually connected a controller to my computer, like a PlayStation or Xbox controller, and I have it set where I can just press one button on the remote to delete the photo, and I just scroll through with a joystick. I'm able to go through the, on a regular event I take about 3,000 to 4,000 photos. Within that, I'm able to cut down to about 500 in less than an hour by just using the controller. So find an easy way that you can go through to delete them on the computer. Figure out a method to your own madness with it, because again, you have to be happy with your photo results. But there are a lot of ways for you to be able to delete and shoot a lot on your camera without having to waste battery on there. Now, this is a photo a customer sent to me one of the first couple of months that I worked here. They claimed their camera didn't work. I brought them in, and I like to always use the expression, now that the Cubs are in the wild card right now, it is not the player, or it's not the bat, it's the player. We can sit here and blame the technology and the equipment all we want, but what it really comes down to is either a lack of patience, knowledge, or willing to practice that is ruining our photos. This customer moved from using the automatic setting into a manual setting within her first few days, and she was very confused on why she couldn't focus, why it was so dark, and in this case, why it was just pixelated and unfocused. It took a little bit for her to realize that she was using a manual control. She didn't know how to set ISO, aperture, or shutter to make sure that she got a better photo. So keep that in mind. Start with automatic at home. It's easy, it's simple, but it's the way you should get started until you feel comfortable to practice and try new things. Your camera isn't a smartphone. A lot of people buy cameras and they're confused on why their phone seems to take a better picture. Phones are designed for ease of use, ease of mind. Take a quick picture, snap, you're done. You text it to a friend, you save it for later. Some people use their phone for professional photography, others don't. But the key to remember is that the phones are designed to be so simple when you're taking a photo that you don't think twice. Cameras are meant for it to be not as simple, so you do think twice. The act of taking a photo is an art, it's practice. It's not necessarily you just being good with a camera the first time you're holding it, much like a phone makes it feel. So remember that everything your phone can do, your camera can't do that. You just have to learn how to control the camera in order to get those results. And by the time you do, that's where you'll really see that a camera can take such better photos than a phone. To me, this is simple, but I like to talk about it. Some of the leading causes for arthritis or for carpal tunnel is from using things like a camera that are small, compact, and we have to fit our hands around them and play with little buttons. So remember to keep good posture. Keep your elbows down when you're shooting so no one can bump into you. Remember that you're holding a very expensive or just a camera in your hand that if dropped on the floor can be broken. So try not to make yourself big so that way no one bumps you, nothing happens to the camera, and good grip on the camera as well too. When shooting, the main practice of holding a camera is one hand on the front of the unit, one hand on the bottom lens. Now, you can shift between holding your hand on the bottom chassis or on the lens, depends on what you're using. Some people have aperture control on the lens, so that might be a reason. You might be using the focus motor on there because you might be doing video or manual focus was what you prefer. All of those things together are necessary in order for you to use the camera. So try 2 hands at all times, one on the physical side grip, one on the bottom or on the lens. Focus, then shoot, and shoot through the picture. A lot of people will focus in and they'll shoot immediately without really checking to make sure that they're getting what they want. It's important to remember that no matter what case scenario you're in, your photo, your environment, your lighting, your subject matter, it's always going to change from second to second. Unless you're sitting in a studio space where it's controlled, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in a forest preserve. Things are going to change and be manipulated by what's around you and what's going on. So what I always recommend, depending on what you're shooting, make sure you focus. Focus the camera, lock it in, and then shoot. Remember though that you're not just getting one aspect of the photo, you're getting multiple aspects. That's a good reminder to then make sure that the correct settings are turned on in order for you to get that. If there are multiple people in an image, setting either face detection or setting a multi-group detection or a wide angle detection area might be necessary. If you're taking a photo of one single item, a single point might be more necessary. If you're shooting low light, you might want to turn the ISO up or the exposure compensation up as you're shooting. If you're shooting things that are fast, well, you might have to manipulate the aperture now to let more light in. The point is, in all of that, whether it's automatic or you're manually controlling it, start with focusing, then shoot through the whole image. You can always evaluate after you're done and make adjustments based on how you evaluate. Maybe the settings you used for the photo didn't come out the best. So now let's update and change a couple things, shoot again. It's trial and error until we get the perfect photo. If you or the camera are moving, you're gonna get blurry photos. This is a perfect example of the bokeh effect. This is a camera that's obviously not focusing on purpose. But a lot of people, if you've used a camera, first time you put it up without focusing it, take that photo, it looks like a blurry, pixelated mess. The reason is you're moving, the camera's moving, you're gonna always get a blurry photo. The other thing I always like to joke about, there are a lot of famous artists who have made millions and millions of dollars on blurry photos. We are not those artists. We are just trying to capture the image. Date your body and marry your glass. This is one of the most important aspects to photography of all time. Camera bodies as a whole, 10 good years. 10 years of regular use, whether that's you picking it up once a month, whether that's you shooting every single day. 10 good years is really what you're looking at on a camera body before you start to notice the technology's outdated, the camera's slowing down, autofocus isn't working as well, light leak, which is just that the camera body is starting to show cracks or holes, allowing light to come in so it's not getting enough dark room areas for it to pick up light through the sensor. All these types of things will start to occur over time. But marrying your glass, investing in nicer lenses and hardware goes a long way. The lenses can get as expensive as camera bodies, but if you buy the right lenses, you should have those for a lifetime. Even if brands change their equipment and do things, there's usually adapters and pieces that come out to then allow you to move things over. When we talk about that though, we should also think about focal length and zoom. They're both very similar, if not they're the same thing. Focal length and zoom come down to this. When cameras were first being built, engineers and scientists did the math and they figured out a system based on what they call millimeters. It's not an actual measurement of millimeters, so if you take a ruler out, it's not going to do anything. But they determined that the human eye sees at 50 millimeters. 50 millimeters from the way that we're viewing and seeing outwards is the true eyesight. Anything lower than that or higher than that is then a number that they were able to create and make through the lens creation. So one thing to keep in mind, zoom and focal length are the same thing. As you zoom in on your photos, you're not just bringing forward one piece of the subject matter, you're bringing in everything. And you have to remember that depending on that, it's going to change the background and the depth of field dramatically. You look at the birds in the 70 millimeter, and they're barely anything, little specks of white circles. But as you get to 105 and 200, they get so much bigger. And by the time you're at 400, not only are the birds very detailed, and you can see their beaks and how they're swimming, but look at how close up the grass and the greenery is behind it. It almost feels like they're right on top of each other, even though when we look at some of the other photos, we barely can see it. So remember, as you zoom, you pull everything forward, you're getting some form of distortion as you do it too. And distortion might look silly, or might not feel real, but it is. Compression and distortion within focal length constantly happen. It's very noticeable in portraits. When you look at the different portraits on this one, you can see that at the lower numbers, something like the 24 millimeter, we get a very narrowed-faced person. And at the 200 millimeter, we're almost pushing up their cheeks a little too far. That 50 millimeter tends to always be the more accurate representation of humans. They usually go all the way up to about 85 millimeters. And at those lower numbers, 20, 24, 16, 35, great for wide angle, great for scenery, landscape, where you're trying to take it all in. Now, I get a lot of people that come in, they ask about lenses, they don't want to buy the kit. If I can give any recommendation for a starting photographer, please buy the kit. Kits are designed for a very specific reason. Number one, it's made to give you a good camera body with an affordable camera lens. Is it going to be perfect, all-star quality for professional use? Probably not. But is it going to give you, a first-time camera user or buyer, an educated example of how lenses, focal length, and shutter, aperture, and ISO all combine together? 100%. So always, 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 always start with a kit lens to get into it. But if you're new to this and you're trying to learn about common lenses and what to expect on the market, that's where we can kind of go through this a little bit more. So the kit lens. What makes this a kit lens versus other lenses? Well, the kit lens is usually dictated by its very low or very weak aperture. In this case, we have a variable aperture of 3.5 to 5.6 with a focal length of 18 to 55. 18 to 55 is a great starting lens for wide angle into portrait. So great for the average, probably family or vacationer who just wants to get easy, simple shots. They're not trying to get professional pictures, but they also don't need zoom. This is great. The aperture stuff, again, we're going to talk about next week to fully understand it. But in the world of aperture, the lower the number can go, the better the aperture is. For things like telephoto lenses, which this technically would be because it zooms, telescopes, 2.8 is the lowest number you can go. And for prime lenses, 1.2 for a lot of lenses is the lowest you could go. Some lenses have found ways to go to a 1, but they are very expensive and very different lenses for different use cases. But a kit lens, simple, basic, not as powerful as far as low light sensitivity, not good for the aperture, but a great way to get started for a beginner. The Nifty 50, or a prime lens. So we talked about the 50 millimeter being the true eye form of the human. Well, at the same time, the 50 is a prime lens. And a prime just means it's a single number. You might see a 35 prime, an 85 prime, 50 prime. I've even seen 20 primes, pancake lenses too. They exist because they can give you a better aperture. So in this case, if we look at the ring at the top, it says 1.4. That's going to let in a lot of light. So this is a very good lens. We move into the zoom or the telephoto lenses, and we're getting something similar in experience. Telephoto lenses are typically dictated by the ability to zoom. The fact they can zoom usually makes the lenses bigger, sometimes even heavier. In this case, I have a 24 to 70 on the left and a 70 to 200 on the right. Both are the higher quality lenses of their respected brands. So Sony being one of them, they symbolize that with the orange G. Canon symbolizes their high end with a red stripe for their L series glass. What we're seeing here though are two lenses that offer us zoom, the different focal lengths, but they all sit at 2.8, higher end zoom lenses. Meaning we let consistent 2.8 aperture into our camera, no matter what focal length we're using, whether that's 24, 70, or 70, or 200, or any number in between. So that's what separates this from a kit lens. Both can zoom, these have a higher quality of light, and with these lenses typically come a nicer lens body. They're typically made out of metal or a magnesium carbonate for weather resistance, and they're typically made with better material on the inside. So there's a whole lot of reasons for why. But if you ever sit at a lens shop or a camera shop and you're like, well, this one costs $3,000 and this one costs $40 or $60, why am I buying which one? Well, here's why. It seems silly, but I like to say it. What's the difference between prime and zoom? Primes, typically better aperture, one number though. So if that's the case, you get the best aperture, but you might have to move yourself back and forth in order to get the perfect picture because you can't zoom. That being said though, it lets the most amount of light in too, and it's lighter weight. On the flip side though, zoom lenses, they still let a good amount of light in. They're not as crisp as a prime lens can be. However, they zoom, which is a huge factor because you yourself don't have to move positions. If you're taking pictures at your kid's game and you're farther back, you can zoom in to get that picture. However, they're heavier and chunkier lenses, so you got to carry that around, and some people really don't like that. Last but not least, I like to talk about travel. There are so many other lenses out there. You can get fisheye lenses, tilt shift lenses, you can get VR lenses, you can get macro lenses. Those are all specialty lenses. Typically you get to that point because of what you're shooting. But these are the most common lenses. The travel lens, or the all-in-one lens, is also a very popular lens. A lens that will go from 18 to 135. Brands like Tamron and Sigma make ones that go 18 to 300. Those are fantastic for the person who is looking for a lens, one lens to conquer them all. I have customers that come in, they're going to go on a safari trip. They don't want to bring in necessarily the biggest, baddest lenses in their collection, but they want something that can take a good portrait, can zoom in. They're going to rely on their camera body doing most of the work. They just want something that's inexpensive, that can be that one-purpose lens. This is usually where this one comes into play. Is it going to have the best aperture? Absolutely not. This one's a 3.5 to 5.6. You'll see other all-purpose lenses that have something similar. But what will it give you? The versatility of being able to zoom a whole lot. So great for someone who's looking for one lens that they can take on vacation or on that trip with them without having to bring multiple lenses. What lenses do you need? And I always put air quotes on here. The joke I make is, let's say you came into me today and you said, Saxon, I got $1 million, what should I buy? I would tell you to buy 3 lenses. We call it the Trinity in the camera world. Get yourself a prime, a 24 to 70, and a 70 to 200. These 3 lenses, if you were to just come in and buy this with whatever camera body, would set you up for probably every photo experience you could go on. The 50 millimeter is the perfect portrait lens. It is by far one of the best. 35 millimeter also gets a higher mark for that. The reason being is it's versatile for portrait or for regular photos. You want to get a beautiful picture of a sculpture that you're visiting while you're overseas somewhere, you can do that. The kids look really cute before dinner and you want to get a nice family photo, you'll be able to do that. You just want to take a nice photo of the scene or the environment. 50's a little tight, but you still could get away with it. But now you might want to switch to 24 to 70. You're walking through the streets of Spain or Paris, and you're seeing beautiful architecture landscape, but you're also with the family. The versatility to zoom in and out and be able to get landscape and portraits are fantastic. When I travel and I go on vacation, one of the only lenses I take out with me is a 24 to 70. And then last but not least, the 70 to 200. The big dog in all of this, very heavy lens, big. But for those of you that like wildlife photography, or wedding photographers even, where you're sitting all the way back at the church or wherever it is, you can zoom through and see the distance that you're getting from it. It really offers a lot of versatility, and when being used within portraits and everything else, it can still take a beautiful portrait from distance away, as long as you have that clearance. But these three lenses in this form would be fantastic. If you don't like the 50, sub it out for an 85, 35, whatever it is. Maybe 24 to 70 is too big for you. 16 to 35s exist for this reason. And maybe you need more zoom. 100 to 400 millimeters also exists too. There are different combinations of this, but typically a small telephoto, a large telephoto, and a prime lens of your love is the way to go for the Trinity. Couple things to wrap up, and then we'll move into any questions if you guys have them. Use your timer in your camera app. Your camera has these for a reason. The timer and the camera app are wonderful. I know I poo-pooed it in the beginning, and I was saying with the transfer. But again, if you're on vacation and you've got family or friends bugging you for a couple photos of the mausoleum that you saw, or this really cool thing, send them to them. It's easy. Transfer them to the photo, text them out, makes it simple to do. I will say that most camera apps are finicky. The only one that is proven to be one of the best is Leica, and unfortunately it's only for iPhone users, even if you do have a Leica and you're using Samsung. But other apps do exist. You gotta be gentle and loving with them, but they take a little bit to transfer. One of the things I do like to talk about is content creation. I won't spend too much on here, but a lot of people are getting into it. If you own a small business, or you have kids even, and you want to start getting into it, or if you're just a business owner of some kind, a lot of the time when you try to purchase and hire people to come out to take your photo and video, it costs a lot of money. And more businesses I see are coming in and buying an entry-level starter camera that they upgrade over the years. I always get asked, what are the 4 or 5 most important things? And I've labeled it into 4 categories. Your video quality, having proper lenses or proper camera bodies and settings, stabilization, tripods or gimbals, or just making sure that you have a firm place to put the camera while you're doing things. Lighting is very important, and microphones, sound. If you're making video of any kind or content, sound is one of the biggest killers of most videos, because if people can't hear you, how are they going to react to what you're doing? Sorry. Ooh. Oh, I hate this weather. Anyway, keeping that in mind, there are fantastic kits out there that you can get into, where you get a microphone, a little tripod, a memory card, a remote, all things that you can use to get into content creation without spending all this money. So look into those. If that's something you're into, they come as a kit, an entry-level kit. It's a good way to start. Last thing I will say, and then I'll wrap this up for today, 5 extra accessories. If today I could only tell you to get 5 extra accessories, I would say buy the top 5. Get yourself a bag. If you've bought a camera, you invested all this money, whether it's a couple $100s or a few $1,000s, buy a bag, protect your equipment. It's worth it in the long run. Have an extra battery and an extra memory card. I've had plenty of times in my own practice where I'll go out and I didn't charge my battery overnight. I didn't bring a spare battery with me. Anytime I go, I bring 3 batteries of every camera that I'm using, even if it's a drone or another piece of equipment, because you never know what could happen, what doesn't charge, and maybe what's defective. Same boat goes for memory cards. Maybe you didn't delete all the photos off of the memory card. Maybe you used the memory card, didn't download everything, but that card's full. Maybe you put a card in your camera and it's not loading, it's not working, it's telling you there's no memory card. Have an extra memory card with you. Don't regret and miss out on your trip. And then a cleaning kit, in my opinion, is always a good way to go. Never use your t-shirt, sweater, sock. If you have microfiber cloths for your glasses, those are great. If not, they make us a little spray, a cleaning kit for it, easily can fit in your camera bag, and it's so simple to just wipe that stuff off and reuse and use. And then lastly, a strap. If you didn't get a camera strap when you got your camera, which most people do, I'd recommend looking online. Brands like Peak Design are the ones I like the most. I personally like when I'm using my camera and I can just take my strap off and do a quick release. There are plenty of times where I'll go out and I won't even use a camera strap, but I have it available at any time, and now I can just simply use my camera freely. There's also padded camera straps out there, so if you've got neck problems or sensitivity, they make tons of different stuff. Get a tripod if you need stabilization. We talked about the external hard drive if you don't like cloud-based solutions. Filters exist, additional lenses like we spoke about, and classes and workshops are always the most important thing. Remember that you're a forever student of photography. There are plenty of things that I get into and learn about later on in this skill set that, I mean, I'm getting ready for my Spain trip in 2 weeks. I will be out of the country, so the classes are going to get a little goofy in the next few weeks, but I've already practiced and learned 3 new things that I want to try specifically when I'm out there that are photography related, as far as lighting, motion control. It's all stuff that I've never thought of until I saw a video, and now I'm interested. So be a forever student in photography. It'll always treat you well, and there's always something new and exciting to do. This is one of the last things I'll leave you guys with. The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of a low price is forgotten. Remember, in photography, there's price tags in photography everywhere. And a lot of the times that holds people back from wanting to do this. Photography can be very, very expensive. It's important, though, that you learn that usually the answer always lies in the middle, but get what you want. Never, ever sacrifice due to price. That means you gotta wait a little bit. I'd wait. Typically, these products that they make from these brands that are a little more expensive or offer something that you're not familiar with, they're there for a reason. They don't just make these products because they think some sucker will buy them. They make these products so that professionals and photographers who know the quality will buy the quality. Take a deal if the deal's there, but make sure you're getting a deal on something that will actually benefit you as a photographer and not just take place up as a wasted space. And that is all I have for you guys. So that was the intro to photography. I went a few minutes over time. I usually try to end at 6:30 for questions. And anybody who's online right now wants to chat in and ask questions, I'm here until you guys don't need me. I know usually you guys don't, but for those who don't feel comfortable asking questions, email or call me or text me. Either one works. That's my number that you can call or text. Email is great too. If you have photo examples of what you're having problems with, or maybe there's a product that you're curious on, whether we carry it or don't, I'm more than happy to answer that. My guys also that work in small electronics are there every single day of the week. We're only closed 3 days a week, so three times a year, I should say. So anybody has questions and you don't want to ask me, come to the small electronics. Our camera bar is fully on and charged. You can try out some stuff, talk to some professionals. That's all I got for you guys. I keep the video going the whole time, so you guys are good. You guys are good.
All right. So I want to show you.
Okay. Sure.
And we're coming next week, but we had a situation last week. My daughter and my son are in cross country, and I went to Aperture or I went to TV.
Okay.
And let me show you the pictures really quick. The pictures came out and it captured them running, no
Okay.
blurriness,
Oh, cool.
but they're grainy.
Okay.
And I love the fact of the burst mode when I was able to get the capture.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, you're a little overexposed.
Yes, that's another thing. They came out.
So the overexposed, that's just changing your ISO or your
Yes,
exposure compensation.
through here.
Yeah, well, let's see. So it depends on how you're shooting. So no, that's controlling just your shutter. Your ISO is that guy,
Okay. Where are you? Okay.
this dial,
Yeah, but what are you changing? Okay, right here.
ISO. When I just looked at this right now, you have this turned all the way up to 102,000. Like that's very high. It should be at like 200, 400.
And that could explain why.
That explains the graininess 100%. Right there. That alone, right there, would change the whole thing. I would also, too, as you're using this guy, so the way that you have this set up is that none of these numbers appear on your screen as you're shooting.
Yes.
They do appear here, but if you just click the, where's the display button? Let's forget this guy. There we go. So if you press the info
What did
button,
you do?
just the info.
Okay, got
So
it.
you press
Got
info, you get all this extra stuff, but the one I would
Yeah.
keep on here is this guy.
Yes.
So as long as you can see that. But the other thing you could always try to use too is automatic ISO. So,
how did you do automatic?
so if you click on this guy, you
Yeah.
can just switch this, drive all the way to the bottom to auto.
Yeah.
Now it's on automatic. So now, as I change this and I start focusing in, right now because I've got my shutter so high at 120, 250, 1 and 2500th of a second,
Right.
it's raising my ISO up to 25,000. That should then in turn get me a better photo with the correct amount of light versus 102,000 ISO.
Right.
Now if I start to change my shutter down, let's say I go down to 1 and 200, now it's got an 8,000 ISO,
And did
64.
you notice that when you lowered your shutter, you got more light into the picture?
Exactly. Well, that's naturally going to happen because the faster your shutter is, the less light you're letting in.
Right.
Yeah. So in that case, when you're using it, just naturally by turning that over, you might not be getting as much. That's your exposure compensation. Oh, that's your ISO. So as I turn this guy, now I'm at 25. The light might have gone down, but then I can also play with other things. Like, let's see, where is my exposure on your camera? So I'm here. If I need to add more light in, I can easily just start to raise up my exposure compensation a little bit more to get that.
Okay. When you're outside and the kids are running, you go after shutter priority, don't you?
Yeah, shutter would be the way to go. I mean, I would be using full manual. Full manual is what's really going to do it. But now you're controlling aperture, dictating how much light you need to come in, also doing shutter, and then also doing ISO.
We just talked about would be going better with full manual.
I mean, it would. And personally, when you get there, yes, it's always going to be full manual is the way to go because you should be changing these numbers every different kid that comes through. It's going to be light looks a little bit different. If the sun starts to go down, numbers start to change. Everything gets affected by it.
On this one, the full manual at the top, with
M.
and full manual.
M is always full manual.
This is aperture priority, and this is shutter priority.
Yep. And P is program auto. P is a good one to do too, because P you could just necessarily let the camera do all the work for you, and you might still be able to get stuff. But if you're having a good time and not getting blurry photos,
Yeah.
try TV, work on doing the speed, but I would keep ISO at auto. And if you're still noticing an issue, then play with exposure a little bit. But like there was enough sun in there that the reason those were grainy were probably because of 102,000 ISO.
Yes.
And if you go back to playback,
Yes.
hit the info button like I was mentioning,
Uh-huh.
it shows that you used 102,000 ISO.
Yes.
It's way too bright for that much sun. You got a lot of sun behind you. Probably could have gotten away with 8,000, maybe 10,000 ISO.
Okay.
But-
Will you ever teach a class on going outside into your ABT?
I don't necessarily know, but I mean that to me would be as simple as have you ever have that? If you come over when the sun is out in the atrium, I usually have customers that'll take pictures by like the fountain there. That's a good one to practice with. Bring the lens in and I can show you little tweaks on it. But what I would do personally is, and it's a great experiment, is just be conscious of those numbers and take pictures of not just her, but a bunch of the kids as they run through,
I was
and
doing
just
that.
keep twisting the number.
I was trying to do that. and-
You'll see the difference there too, and that
Yeah.
usually is how I practice. So like, I just bought my new lens. I just got a cheapy little 28mm for my Nikon,
Yeah.
and I use this adapter to let me bring my Sony over because I'm mainly a Sony shooter. This is my fun camera. Well, when I first bought this lens, I set up a still life at home. I put 3 lights on it, and then basically I took pictures with every aperture, turned one light off, took pictures of all the apertures, turned the second light off, took pictures of all the apertures. Then I put those on my computer and went through photo by photo to see what the effect on the lens Now when I'm walking around like downtown, because I live down in the city, like when I'm walking around, like for example, let's see. The color was okay on this one, but like this was something that I took pictures last night of as we were walking through the bridge. I got one of the shots going down the street on Grand right over there, like the skyline,
Yeah, I know where
through
that
the
is.
different area, and it was just nice. The color came out right, the saturation was good. I had another one the other day too. I was by the Tribune Tower, and same thing. I got an upward shot. The lights were perfect, black and white. Didn't look oversaturated. Didn't look too dark. And it just came from the fact that like I know my lens really well. I know how it's going to respond in that light, so I already know what numbers to start tweaking it to just by looking at something. That's what we talk about in the intermediate class a bunch. And I think that's going to really help.
Yeah.
Where it comes down to you recognizing in those situations, but I think really where those photos went a mess was just because your ISO was too high.
Yes.
And I think you didn't realize it. Always check to make sure it's in auto.
Right.
And the best way to do it when you're looking at it, if we flip this guy around,
Yeah.
it should say right underneath it in small letters, ISO auto.
And this is on,
It should be this guy. Yeah, on TV, but this is what changes it. So just make sure you're at, if it doesn't load like that, click it,
yeah.
then bring it all the way to auto, and then you're good to go.
I have three main settings. I have this to
Mhm.
toggle, this to toggle,
Yeah,
and what was the,
this guy, and this guy. That dial, the front dial, and then the bottom.
okay. 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 I will work on it this upcoming week.
Yeah, take your time, but we have practice. I mean, you're getting it, and the photos. I mean, that one definitely had a lot of grain to it,
Right.
but it wasn't blurry.
Right.
Which I remember the last time we had talked.
Yes.
Blurry was
Yes,
so
yes, yes. The investment that I made in here, I'm happy with it.
You're
It's
getting
ju- Just need to practice more.
That's
That's why I forced her to. No, that's why I forced her to do sports.
I joke with the camera stuff. I'm like, that's why I force myself to take this out with me everywhere I go. Could be something small. Where I'm just seeing a family member. I'm taking it with them, and I'm like, take a picture of your dog or something. Like, I just need to have this with me because the second that you stop playing and practicing with it,
Yes.
that's where it starts to like just feel weird. So,
Yes, and like fall is coming up, so
Oh,
I'm
God,
gonna
yeah.
take the fall picture.
100%, especially cross country season just getting started too.
Yes.
A lot more miles to run. I remember I ran it in high school, and yeah.
Thank you,
remember all
Zach.
those days.
Thank you for all your time.
Oh, anytime, guys. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you. I'll see you guys next week, and then next week I'll announce how it's gonna change. I'll be in Spain for 2
Your
weeks.
third class is what?
The third class will be the advanced cameras, but that I'm gonna figure out when I'm gonna do. I still-
Okay, that's
so,
fine.
yeah.
I can put through intermediate, I'll have
Yeah.
to go.
Beautiful. Yeah, I might do the advanced the Monday after the Thursday,
Okay.
because then it'll be perfect. But we'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day. Okay, everybody. Well, it doesn't look like you guys have any questions for me. Let me pull this up. I appreciate everybody for coming. You might also be seeing that I'm wearing Cubs gear right now. I am watching, or we at the store are celebrating for the Cubs. They are in the playoffs right now. If they win the wild card, they will move on to the next division. So we're all hoping for that. But I'm going to stop talking there. Guys, thank you for enjoying my class. Thank you for coming. Next Thursday will be our intermediate camera class, so we'll be here for that. I'll see you guys at 5:30 to 7. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, anything you need from me at all, feel free to contact, email me, call into the store, ask for the small electronics department. We'll get you someone to help you. As always, guys, keep shooting, keep enjoying photography, and I'll see everybody next week for intermediate cameras. Take care.